Hi everybody, welcome back to another video, and this one I'm talking about desperation and how desperation makes you broke, and how scarcity actually isn't a result of being scarce, but actually leads to being scarce. And that is in money, in relationships, in everything that you do in life. If you feel scarce, you will become scarce. If you feel abundant, you will become abundant. And this is a really important thing to understand. And bear with me, it sounds a little woo-woo, it sounds a little crazy, but I have a practical, rational example of this happening this month in my business. I lost just under $10,000 this month because I ended up in a desperation mode. This is a really, really valuable video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Watch it in full and share your thoughts in the comments. Before we get into the video, I've got two things I want to give you. First of all, if you have any questions, Instagram is a great place to reach me, at Trey Cockrum. Good place to hit me up. Another thing is, if you want to join a good community, we've got a Facebook group. So Instagram and Facebook groups are a great place to get your questions answered and sort of hang out with good people. Lastly, if you're ready for it, I've actually opened up a couple slots on my calendar in regards to the 6-figure marketing consultant program. So you can click the link pinned comment, or click the link. I think we'll have like a white info box pull up on the video. You click that as well and schedule your call. Look, if you're ready to do it right, you want to scale your agency to that $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month level like many of the students have been able to do, and you want to eventually be on the channel as an interview, a success story, schedule your call, and I won't make you an offer if you're not qualified. So yeah, go ahead and schedule your call, and we'll get going there. So with that being said, enjoy the video, and yeah, take notes. All right, how's it going, everybody? I just want to flip out the phone, record a quick video for you guys. Just about how scarcity completely kills your business. And I literally have like a direct example of this. I'm not even kidding, like a direct example of this month. So we're on track to do like 55,000 this month, which is what it looks like we're wrapping up at. It's May 29th, and it looks like that's what we're gonna wrap up at, right? But it could have been solid 60, maybe 65,000, like another $5,000 to $10,000 more potentially if I hadn't done this. So check this out. This is just a really cool case study, something that happened. So I got a client on board. They paid $3,000 up front, and they were gonna pay $3,000 2 weeks after, right? I do very custom deals, especially with the agency. Like everybody has packages and things like that, but I'm just very custom deal kind of a guy. Like I'll just figure it out with them, right? And what's interesting is the second payment of $3,000 wouldn't come through. Like card was declined, and then it like wouldn't process, and then they tried to PayPal, and it wouldn't come through, and I was starting to think that they wouldn't pay, and I was looking forward to that $3,000, even though it's not that much money at the end of the day, because we've already done like at that point we'd already done like 40 grand this month. But I started getting attached to that $3 grand, and I started looking at my business bank account, being like, when's that freaking $3 grand gonna arrive? And I started doing all these things like, how can I speed it up? Like, you can wire it if you want to wire it, and I started getting really desperate, and like it slowed down my sales because that 3 or 4 day period, I'm not even kidding, I generated pretty much nothing for the business because I was obsessed with one sale. I was obsessed with one payment. I was obsessed with one check clearing. And what's interesting is that does something to your brain, where it makes your brain, when you are desperate for anything, your radar for potential turns off. It just shuts off. And how does that work? So and why is that a thing? So what's interesting is a lot of people get into business to like pay bills or out of desperation. That's a bad place to run a business off of. You want to run a business off of abundance. Because when you're desperate and you are like clawing to get a client, or you're clawing to get that payment from that client, or whatever it might be, you'll find that it shuts off your brain to other opportunity. And I looked back at those 3 or 4 days, and I noticed like I had like 2 or 3 sales calls every day, and I'm not even kidding, I didn't close a single one because my brain was sort of subconsciously focused on that one check that wasn't clearing. I was like, frick, just clear, just go through, just clear. And it wouldn't clear. And it still hasn't cleared. I had to just get over it. And fire the client. And even refund them the 3, because if they can't pay their second, then I'm not gonna have them just pay their first and that. So I said, just come back around when you're ready, just pay $5,000 in full, and we'll do what we're going to do for you, okay? So it may be like next week, 3 months from now, I don't know, I don't care. But what's interesting is you have to let go. You have to just let go of these little things, because these little things stack, man. Like if you are desperate for a payment, if you are desperate for a contract to be signed, if you are eyeballing one specific client, you've been after one client for like 6 months. I've seen people do this. And they're just pursuing one client for the longest time. They're like, this is my dream client. If I could just land them. The problem with that is it turns off your brain of other opportunity. You have to be totally, completely neutral about who works with you and why. You shouldn't have this attachment to any one client or any one sale or any one check or any amount of money even. You have to be completely detached, completely like in a total state of abundance. So, I was doing like $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 pretty much every day. If you average all of the days out this month, it's been about $1.8 to $2.5 thousand pretty much every single day rolling in, right? I would say at least 2,000 profit, which is pretty sweet. Until this moment happened. I'm not even kidding. The day that I saw that check not paid through, because I get a notification on my phone. Stripe tells me, it's like, payment failed from this client of $3,000. I was like, what? It's like, looking forward to that. I had it on my calendar. It's like gonna be a nice little boost that day. And then it didn't happen. And then immediately my brain goes into figured out mode and desperation mode and trying to get it to work. And then these other sales that I could have been making weren't getting made because my brain wasn't open to that opportunity. It was just focused on the one. So it's hard to really explain exactly how this phenomenon works. I realized after whipping out the camera that it's a bit harder to explain than I thought it would be, but I hope that makes sense. When you are desperate for any one client, any one outcome, and you're like attached to it, it's just gonna make all the other outcomes so much harder to get. And so you can't be attached to anything. You have to be completely detached. And so a healthy thing that I've done recently is like store money for like rent, so I don't have to worry about rent. Now I can pull that money out if I absolutely have to. I decided I'm not gonna pay rent up front for like 6 months, but I have 6 months worth of rent just separate. I just pay out of that fund, right? Does that make sense? But if something happens, I can pull from it too. So I've got that covered, so I'm not worried there. So there's no worry for me. I have like insurance and my car bill, everything like that, which is probably like $300 a month. It's not even that much, but like your brain does that. Like for some reason, any loss, it just like zones in on and gets obsessed with it. Or any lost potential gain, it gets obsessed with that. And so you'll probably notice this as well, like if you compare yourself to anybody who's like doing well in business, like honestly, if you compare yourself to me, this is something you should not be doing. You should not compare your journey to anybody you're seeing. It is you versus you forever. You are not competing against anybody. You are your only competition. Because what happens is if you start to view other people as your competition, or like you start to compare to them, you start to feel like you've lost something you could potentially have. That's what envy does. That's what jealousy does, right? So then you start to get desperate and you don't make the right decisions and you don't make the sales you could potentially be making because you are desperate for an outcome that you see you could have had or you could have. Does that make sense? So when you want something and you don't get it, it turns off your ability to get other things. It's sort of like a guy who's obsessed with one girl. And I always use girls as an example. I don't know why. I'm not even that. I'm like ready to settle down tomorrow. Which is so funny that I speak about this stuff. What was I saying? Yeah, it's like one guy who's like obsessed with like one girl, and like a bunch of girls pass by that could totally work for him, and they get along well, and they're cute girls, and it could work great. But he's obsessed with this one chick for some reason, and just doesn't treat them right. Like they're dropping all the hints, and he's just not getting them. And that's literally like I watch back these sales calls because I record all my sales calls, and I was like inches away from the sale. I just didn't have the willpower to push because I was so obsessed with this one check that didn't clear. So I probably lost like 8 or 9 grand worrying about 3 grand. Does that make sense? So it's a really weird phenomenon. So don't ever let yourself get caught up in what was lost and what potential gain you didn't have. Don't get obsessed with one client, one girl, right? Don't get obsessed with one thing. Stay completely and totally neutral. Completely neutral. What happens is what happens. What doesn't happen is what doesn't happen. And it is of no concern of mine. right? And you just stay completely, totally neutral. And you look at the life of like Christ, for example. I think in Matthew, he talks about like, don't worry about tomorrow. Or don't worry about getting fed. Like, I feed the birds of the air and the plants of the ground, so why are you worried about getting fed? Like, if I feed birds, you'd think I'd feed you, right? So it's like, it's a really healthy mindset to have. Don't worry. There's no worry. There's no need for worry in business. There's no need for worry in life. Worry doesn't play any roles. We're above true worry. Worry is designed to keep you from death. That's what worry is for. It's designed on a biological level just to keep you from doing things that will kill you, right? But like, the worst thing that happens in business is you go broke. And even then, you're not going to die. Like, we've got plenty of programs and things you can hop on if you've got family or friends or freaking food stamps or, welfare checks or whatever it takes, get support from a church or something. You're not going to die. So there should be no desperation. So the second you introduce desperation, basically the point of this business is desperation and scarcity versus abundance. So don't get desperate. Don't for a second let your brain get desperate for anything. And this is why I do things like buy nice watches and like have a nice apartment and stuff like that, is because I just like, in a weird way, it helps me earn more money to just kind of throw money around a little bit, to put money in its place. And this is actually a module I have in the 6-Figure Marketing Consultant program. It's going in it soon. It's called Your Worldview and Money. It's gonna be a freaking fantastic module. And it's just gonna talk about how to view money and how to make it submit and how to keep it submissive to you. Because if you submit to it, it controls you and you get desperate and you'll lose sales and you'll lose your business and you will lose your life to money. But if you make money submit to you, you don't love money, you don't like cherish money, it just happens, you just earn it because you're bringing value and you know that that's the result of that. That's the place to operate from. It's a much healthier place to operate from. It's much easier to grow. It's much easier to throw 20 grand into an ad campaign, for example, which is something I'm planning on doing in June. Budgeted $20,000 to grow the education side. And I would not be able to do that if I didn't view money right. If I was attached to it, I wouldn't be able to do that, right? Now, of course, we probably won't spend 20 grand. I've said the max I'm going to spend is 20 grand. That is only if we're seeing an ROI in the first 2,000 or 3,000. If I see a return in the first 2,000 or 3,000, I'm gonna spend 5. If I see a return, I'm gonna spend 10. If I see a return, I'm gonna spend 15, then 20. So you gotta, be a little bit more tactical about it. I'm not just throwing money around just to do it. But you see what I'm saying? I wouldn't even be thinking that way if I was desperate. Does that make sense? You can't make smart moves out of desperation. No good decisions are made out of a state of desperation. I can't think of many examples of good decisions made out of a state of desperation. So I encourage you to really just write out a list of why you should never be desperate. What things you have going for you that keep you from ever needing to be desperate. Like for me, I have some, for example, let's say I lost everything. Let's say it turns out I haven't been paying enough in taxes or something, and I owe $300,000 or something crazy, something just wild. And then that week also, it turns out that I forgot to pay my insurance bill that month, and I get in a car accident, and I have to pay 150 grand to a hospital or something. And I just boom, 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 just everything lines up, and I'm screwed. I like to think that even in that scenario, I wouldn't be desperate because I understand the effects of time, the skill sets that I've built, and I trust in my ability to build something that is a real asset for me. And I trust in my ability to take this and build it into a multi-million-dollar business. I just know what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years based on trajectory. It's not an ego thing. It is not an arrogance thing. You just look at numbers, man. You got to look at numbers. So if you went up 60% this year to last year, you got to ask what made that happen. Go up 60% again next year. You can do that year on year on year. There's no big jumps and then plateaus. If you plateau after a big jump, you're not actually growing. You just fixed a bottleneck and then removed it, and then now you're a little bit better, right? It's not like a consistent growth. Anyway, though, hopefully this video makes sense. Don't get desperate. Desperation doesn't serve you. That's one of the things that I really think is bad about. I see people, they're like, I just binged all your videos. I love you. I'm in love with your stuff, Trey. I'm like, that's cool. And I'm happy. I'm honestly happy when people do that. It's very cool to me that I have as much influence on the subset of people that I do on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all this stuff for the consulting agency niche. But I really encourage you to not idolize anyone. Don't idolize anybody because it'll make you desperate. Don't idolize money because it'll make you desperate. Whenever you idolize anything, it makes you desperate for that thing or a thing related to it. So don't idolize anything. Everything's within reach. Everything's totally doable. And that's a mindset you gotta have. So like, don't idolize anything. You know, like for example, there's a mastermind that I've been wanting to join for a long time, and I idolized it. It's like a $20,000 mastermind. And then one of my buddies joins it, and he's like, yeah, it wasn't that good. I was like, what the frick? It's 20 grand. You paid 20 grand. It wasn't that good? What do you mean it wasn't that good? I've been wanting to join it for a year. Like, I've been like putting money aside. I'm ready to join it soon. He's like, yeah, it wasn't that good. And that taught me something. And it's that, like, I don't care how much you see in something, it might not have within it what you're seeing. like you might have a weird perception of what it actually is. Now, I still plan on joining the mastermind, but he was detached. This is a guy that does like 200 grand a month profit, right? So he's like, 20 grand is just nothing. So he joins the thing and he's like, yeah, I mean, it was pretty okay. Like, you know, I could see why you would like it, but, you know, join if you want, don't join if you don't want to. Just very nonchalant about it. I was too chalant about it. He was very nonchalant. I was too chalant. I cared too much. And what's interesting is I sort of put that mastermind to the side like 3 or 4 months ago. I was like, I'm not gonna join this, whatever. And now I'm in a better place to join than ever, and I don't even know if I want to. So when you detach from things, they come easier every time. So hopefully this video is valuable to you guys. I'm gonna wrap it up here. I just learned a little lesson this month, and it's a lesson that I already knew, but I just got reinstilled in a small way. When you get attached to any outcome, it blinds your eyes to any other outcomes, and it makes you desperate, and desperation is no place to make sales, run a business, make decisions with. It's a horrible place to operate from. So don't get desperate, stay detached, and just have fun with it, man. Like, really, honestly, like, just have fun doing this, and it will grow. All right, thanks for watching, you guys. I'll see you in the next one.